Hello, and welcome to E&I. I have a document that we need to read before we start. As a reminder, SCBWI has a policy of supporting diversity and inclusion. This is a place we set aside for Kidlit creators and translators to meet, exchange ideas, and support one another in our efforts to bring great books to all children. Part of the reason we do this is so that they can see themselves and others reflected in their lives. We specifically focus on the art, craft, and business of publishing and try to keep on topic so everyone gets the most value from our time together. If you have any questions about this, please see the anti-harassment policy posted on the SCBWI website. Thank you. And we are so excited, Equity Inclusion is so excited to have GF Miller here today. GF Miller absolutely insists on a happy ending. Everything else is negotiable. She is living her happily ever after with her college sweetheart, 3 kids, 2 puppies, and some chickens. She cries at random times. She makes faces at herself in the mirror. She believes in the Oxford comma, and she's always here for a dance party. Welcome, Glinka.
Thank you, Karen.
We're so excited to have you here. So Glinka is also my critique partner, so I'm super excited to have her here as well. Bonus, she is releasing her 3rd book called What If Not If You Fall For Me First? What If You Fall For Me First? And is a middle grade rom-com. And she's been talking about this over all the channels, which is super excited about. So we are gonna get started on this interview. So the first one is, tell us about your journey to publication. You can just talk to us.
Yeah. Well, actually, before you started the recording, we were just talking about how terrible querying is, how hard it is. Let's see, I think I drafted my first novel in 2015. Queried it for a year, racked up about 108 rejections, and then tucked it under the bed. During that year, I was writing another thing that might come up a lot today because it involved a lot of diversity that was outside of my own lived experience. And so there was the Chicago. Yeah, so I just really poured a lot into that, and I was exhausted at the end of that. And so I decided I wasn't ready to query that one. It was really tender to my heart, and I had been querying long enough to know the level of rejection I was gonna need to face. And I was like, it was just too close to the bone. So I set that aside with really not querying it. And I just wanted a mental vacation at that point. So I was like, now I'm just gonna write something to make myself laugh. And so, so I wrote a book about a fairy godmother in high school, and it was super silly and funny. And that is the book that ended up getting me an agent. So I drafted that first in 2017, and it finally came out in 2021 in the middle of COVID lockdown, January 2021.
Fun times.
Fun times. Yeah. So, and the publisher that picked it up kind of like also kind of imploded during the process. Like the publisher the imprint I signed with, they shut it down halfway through, and they moved me to a different imprint, but they moved my editor to another place, another imprint. And I was kind of this orphan book in-house. And so that was one experience I had.
That was Glimpsed. It's a young adult rom-com.
And it's adorable.
It's lovely.
Not enough people got to read it. So,
Sure.
So yeah, and then actually ended up working again with that same editor with my previous book, Not If You Break Up With Me First. Yes. And then the book that just came out a few days ago. Yeah, I love my editor so much.
Yay. Happy times. Okay, the next question is, So tell us about your books. You kind of touched on this. Are there any similar themes or anything you like to purposely put into your books?
You know, it's silly. My books are rom-coms, but I feel like that's important. I feel that teens and tweens that have the opportunity to pick up my books deserve a bit of a mental break, the same way I deserved really needed a mental break when I wrote
Something
Glimpse.
that's not sad.
Yeah, there's a lot of hard things in their lives and in the world. And I remember being 12 and 13 and 14 years old and how seriously I took myself and all of the things happening to me. And I think that I just really, really hope that I can inject a little bit of humor into those situations and help them to take a step back and realize like that they don't have to take themselves quite so seriously. And also just to be a safe place for those new questions and curiosities and feelings that they're having. And I know that for me, between the ages of like 12 and 14, I was more interested. That was the time in my life I was the most interested I will ever be ever in like romance and boys and how does this work? And but you want to think about it and talk about it all the time, but you don't actually want to have any contact with any real boys.
Right.
For the vast majority.
Because boys that age are gross.
So I just know that for myself and hopefully for my readers, that books were a great outlet for satisfying that curiosity and thinking about the possibilities without actually having to take any risks or do anything I wasn't emotionally and mentally ready for. So
that's a good point.
yeah.
I remember being that age and like I just wanted to read about love stories, but in a safe way. And I think my favorite ones were like where they're very introspective and they're thinking about romance. Oh, that's good. Romance and love and having crushes, but not acting on the crushes.
Yeah. I was so into love stories, and I still am, obviously. But yeah, I think it can be really cathartic to be like, oh, this person messed up so many times in this book, but the other person still loved them. Like, like I don't have to get everything right. I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to have perfectly clear skin.
It's true.
The fortunate few get that.
That's true. Where do you get your ideas?
All over the place. I feel like with Glimpse, I was literally just like taking a walk in the park, just generating ideas. I feel like I'm kind of a fountain of ideas, like way more ideas than I can actually write. But Not If You Break Up With Me First was pitched as How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days in middle school. So obviously 90s rom-coms are a huge source of inspiration. And most of them make way more sense if the people are 13. Like because like for adults to be doing what they were doing in that movie was like, are you guys kidding me?
Like this is a conversation and the movie is over.
Yeah. Like there's so often a lot of those tropes are like, use your words, Mimo. But when you're reading about a 13-year-old doing that, it's like, of course she doesn't know how to say that to him. Like,
of course.
13-year-old.
Middle fingers are great protagonists because of that.
Yes, and their feelings are enormous, and the stakes feel like life and death, no matter how low they actually are, which makes for incredible comedy.
It does.
So,
And so much drama.
Mhm.
So much drama. I love it.
Yes,
I love
that
it.
for them.
Too. Who or what is your inspiration?
Inspiration. I mean, I have teenagers myself, and they are very inspiring.
Do you ever steal their lines for the book?
I do sometimes. My son loves it when I do. Yeah, he's like, did you put that in?
That's so funny.
But the funny thing is they more often steal my lines, I find, or like I'll write some scenario in the book and then like weeks or months later, one of my kids will come home and be telling me the story and I'm like, I want you to know when you read this later that I wrote that in September. Like stop stealing my material. it's very validating.
Read your own thoughts.
It's so real. But yeah, let's see, what else inspires me? 90s rom-coms
90s rom-coms.
and current rom-coms. I love all rom-coms, give me the rom-coms.
I know you like Hallmark Channel.
I love Hallmark Channel.
Mhm. She has a Hallmark Christmas bingo where you can play with your family and watch a rom-com, and then you do certain things if something comes up.
Yeah, that's on my blog. You can
Yes.
find that at gfmiller.com.
I'm gonna plug for it.
And it definitely will come up. Hallmark.
Absolutely. What would you like to inspire in others? I think you kind of talked
Yeah, I feel like we covered this a bit, but I just want my readers to be able to lighten up a little, laugh at things that maybe feel a little heavy for them in real life, and just be able to walk away smiling and happy. Yeah,
Yay, infuse some joy.
yeah, the world needs a little more joy.
You did talk about like querying and being the querying treasures. Have you had other challenges writing or in publishing, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, well, so as I mentioned, there was challenges with the first book, and there's always challenges.
Rejection?
Even now I'm writing my fourth book, and the challenge is, dang, it is really hard to have a book launch and a pending deadline
Oh,
and 3 teenage kids and a job, because we all also have jobs to pay the bills.
What do you do, like your day job?
I work with a nonprofit and I do a lot of writing, like that's my nonfiction writing career. So,
Get all that in.
I don't. I don't know. I only work part-time at the nonprofit,
Okay.
and they are really, almost all my coworkers are in Africa and Asia. And so when I work is not like very regimented.
Oh.
So, and I've been working with the same people for a very long time. And so they have a lot of trust in me, and they know that I'm also an author and celebrate with me. But so it's not one of those weird situations where I feel like I have to hide it from them or anything like that. And sometimes I'll just come around and be like, I really like, I need to have a light week this week, and they'll just give me that grace.
That's nice.
So, yeah, so I'm
nice.
super lucky. I am grateful.
I think that was one of our questions. You skipped.
Oh, but I just wanted to say the
Yes.
challenges never stop. Like, I think when I was in the query trenches, I might have had this idea that like, if I could just get an agent, then it's
Me
sunshine and
too.
roses. And then it's like, well, if I could just,
Just
if I
get
could
it
just get off of
publishing.
sub and get a contract, get
Yeah.
this book under contract, then I've made it. It's like, oh no, still haven't made it, you know?
Yeah.
There's never, you know, you have to really embrace the journey, even the sucky parts, because there isn't a time when the challenges are like over and you just get to ride the wave of success and glory.
Right.
So they tell you in like meditation, like you have to enjoy the now, because
Yeah.
if you're waiting for happiness around the next corner, it's likely not coming.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And they do
Exactly.
say, like, you need to define what success means to you, because that's different for everybody. And so, and you try not to compare, which is hard, but you try not to.
That's hard.
It's really hard because you see like huge successes of debut, and you're like, oh, I wish that was me, and it's not.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think that it's a roller coaster. Like even after getting an agent, even after getting an editor, like it's still a roller coaster for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. What resources? Oh, okay. We're gonna switch to the equity inclusion part of this interview.
Okay.
Okay. What resources or techniques do you use when writing about diverse characters, especially those who are different from you? 'Cause you have a lot of diverse characters in your books.
Thank you. I really want my worlds to be colorful because I love how colorful our world is. So I guess the very most important one is relationships. Our characters aren't going to feel like real people if we don't have relationships with people that are different from ourselves and people with different lived experiences and different cultural backgrounds. And so, yeah, I think that that's just the number one thing. Get out and make relationships, whether it's through volunteering or joining a faith community or just, yeah, those are probably some of the best ways to get to know people that are different than you, because otherwise we end up living in very homogenous bubbles.
That's true.
And yeah, I think beyond that, I've had some great experiences with, so the book that I didn't query, the premise of the book was that a family from a very nice upper middle class suburb moved to the inner city to do like social work. The parents were very excited about working in the inner city, but their daughter is very not excited to be part of that. And but so she encounters all of these people who are very different from her, and she has a journey of coming to love and understand lots of different people. But the process of some of the tools that I used were originally I was from Chicago, but now I live in Phoenix. So I flew back to Illinois, and I went and visited some of the neighborhoods that I was writing about, so that I could be more specific about some things.
Yeah.
And even in that, it was really wonderful. The Chicago is a very segregated city. Like
Okay.
there's Black neighborhoods and
There's white
there's only Black people that live in those neighborhoods. Like
Oh.
and many times those are also, like, a lot of those neighborhoods are really the poor neighborhoods, neighborhoods with a lot of gang activity.
Okay.
And so when my white girlfriend and I were like going to these neighborhoods to visit, like, it was very sweet. Like, people were coming up to us and being like, "Are you okay? Like, are you safe? Should you be here?" Like, yeah.
Wow.
We're like looking for the one, you know. There's a one neighborhood has just a wall where they write the names of people who, when they die, they write their names on this wall, a memorial wall. And so we wanted to see this wall because I wanted to include it in my book. And so, but yeah, no, so somebody like gave us directions. Somebody else walked us over there. They were very like protective of us, and it was just wonderful.
That's wonderful.
I also knew someone who had done something similar. He was like a middle-aged white guy who started this thing called Young Men's Education Network, YMen. His name's Mike Trout. Shout out to Mike Trout. He's amazing. But I went and visited Mike, and he took me around his neighborhood where he was working and introduced me to people, and that was awesome. And then he also helped me connect with 3 teenage authenticity readers who would read the work for me. Yeah, and they were so great. That was one of the greatest experiences. So if anyone is out there kind of nervous about authenticity readers, like, embrace the process. Like, it's really,
That's
it's really
amazing.
cool. Yeah.
Were they reluctant or were they eager to read?
I paid them each $100 and they were eager to have
Okay.
it.
So they will worth the money.
Teenagers love money, no matter where they're from.
Okay.
Yeah, no, and all of that was out of, like, whether I ended up doing it well or not, it was all out of a genuine desire to represent their communities well, because that book was not under contract and I was just doing that
Right.
for myself. Yeah. So yeah, and then when I had glimpsed under contract, the publisher also hired an authenticity reader for that book, because one of the major side characters is Indian.
Okay.
And so they just wanted to make sure that we represented Indian culture, Indian American
Oh, nice.
teenagers well.
Okay.
So yeah.
And then for the new series, like you have, you know, Arav and Jamal and Rodriguez and or I think two
Ramirez.
Ramirez. Did you have people read for that, or did your publisher have anybody read for that?
No, we didn't this time. I
Okay.
guess maybe because it was more of an ensemble and not like a main character. I'm not really sure why they didn't decide to have one.
Okay.
Does that make a difference if it's like like one of your main characters versus like a side character or something?
Does it?
I don't know. I'm looking to use the expert.
You're like,
I think it depends on the role that that side character plays and just,
Okay.
I can't really speak as an expert to
Not.
very many. I've only worked with one publishing house, so I can only say what they've done with me.
I don't think I had sensitivity readers for mine, but
Yeah, you have good diversity.
and all three main characters are different
Yeah.
ethnicities, and so but they didn't. I think the copy editor went through and made sure like the Spanish was correct for one of the characters' moms. She was like intersperses Spanish and English. But for Bella, who is half black and half white, they didn't do anything. And then for Misato, she's Japanese, they didn't do anything. So I think they trusted me, I think, that I did my research. Yes. Okay. Oh, you just answered that next question. Okay. How do you balance, you talk about this, how do you balance job and motherhood? Do you, like, I'm in the same boat. Do you have a routine, or you know that you do the best writing at such and such times?
It's been different for every book.
Okay.
My kids were quite a bit younger with the first 3 novels, and I would get up at like 2 or 3 a.m. I would write until like 5 when my first kid would be popping out of bed. And then I would, like, when my youngest was ready for a nap, and like put him down and then write while he took his nap. There was very little sleep involved in that era. Now that they're all in school, I try to during the school year, I try to, as soon as they get them out the door, then I can work and at my part-time job. And then like in the afternoon, I try to carve out like 2 or 3 hours in the afternoons. I know for myself, I'm just not firing on all cylinders in the evenings. And then there's this witching hour, you know, when the kids get home and it's like, help with homework, make dinner, like deal with crises, hear about their day, like one person's melting down, somebody, they need rides to and from their extracurricular activities. And it's just like this really crazy, like 4 o'clock to like 10 o'clock. Yeah. And then it's like, well, I definitely don't have anything left to write at that point. So
That's true.
So yeah, that's how that goes. And then in the summer, it's a little bit more like, guys, this has got to be my writing time. Like,
okay.
And sometimes I have to leave their space in order to carve it out.
Interesting.
Because they just love me. They can't get enough of me.
And then like working to deadline, how is that?
That is a joy, because if you have a deadline, it means somebody bought your idea and they want to pay you for a book, and that is amazing.
And you want to deliver.
Yes, even when I don't have an official deadline, I have critique partners, which helps create artificial deadlines. And learning to really stick to those and be like, no, this is the deadline, I have to get something done, is a really good practice. But I mean, in reality, nothing ever gets done ever without a deadline. That's, you know, at some point, even cleaning my bathroom, it's like, if I don't have a deadline, it's just gonna keep getting worse.
Work somewhere.
But then it's like, oh, someone's coming over, we're gonna clean.
We have to clean. We have to clean. Yes. That's the deadline.
Yeah. So I feel like it can fuel your creative process. It's a good thing.
That's so true. That's so true. Okay. Have you identified any blind spots in how you portray an experience different from your own that you encountered? Have you adjusted your thinking or writing to overcome these?
The thing about blind spots is we don't know we have them. So we're blind to them.
That's true.
I think that the adjustment is a posture of humility, of ongoing humility, and never feeling like, well, I've arrived. I get it now. I've figured out how to do this. Like,
I figured it out.
yeah, I think just
start.
being a good listener, being willing to hear other people's experiences and perspectives of things, and I think that's the beauty of being a storyteller, rather than like a politician or something. That our whole role is to, you know, listen well and represent well. And honestly, whether it's like cultural diversity or as a writer, we can't get away from the fact that we're telling other people's stories. Like if I have any male characters in my book,
Oh, yeah.
I'm representing a perspective that I don't have as the
true.
author. People of different ages. I'm not 12 and I'm not 70. Like, and I've written characters with both of this, both of those stages of life. And so it's, I feel like for me, the first thing is that I truly believe we have more in common as human beings than we have, like, that I couldn't possibly understand about someone else's experience. Like we all share this common humanity and common kind of way that we're wired. We all want love. We all want acceptance. We all want purpose in life. We all want to be understood. Like, you know, there's so many things that are universal that I can still, no matter the heritage of my character or the sex or the gender or the whatever, I can still reach into myself and be like, well, how would I react in this situation? Or how would I want to be heard? Or how would I, you know, feel if I were being treated this way? And then I think overlaying on top of that, like making sure that we do our research and that we find people who can help to know if we're missing something that was true about someone else's experience. But I also find that even within a people group even within any given affinity group, there's more diversity within the group than between me and another human being. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I understand that, yeah.
yeah, like even my two daughters in the same home from the same family with the same DNA are so different from each
So
other, and their
different.
stories would be told so differently.
Yes.
But I think that just remembering that every single character is a human being with their own story is really important.
Do you ever get like any pushback about writing a diverse character? Like just as I've been querying, I've noticed some agents say if you are writing about a character that is other than you, like I will not be a good fit for you. Like don't submit your book and stuff like that. And I was like, wow, you can't write about anyone that's not exactly like yourself. Like that seems.
Are they talking specifically like main character? Or are they talking about all characters?
I don't know. They didn't specify. They
Okay.
just said if you're writing about they said a character that's not like you. That's not like you.
Wow.
And some of them will say if you're writing about a character that's not like you, why are you the best person to tell this story or something like that? And I was like, how far does that extend? Is that only the protagonist? And how far there? Like, can I write about a white boy or only white females? Like, is that what I'm restricted to? Like, I don't know. But like, has anyone ever like said any pushback on that?
I've also heard that. No one has like read one of my books and then come and push back on me like, how dare you write that character? That has never happened to me. But I have heard that general feeling that you just said. And I think I can see it both ways. I mean, I definitely think that if the bookshelves are flooded with white women telling other people's stories, that might mean there isn't space for own voices, authors, that I really want their stories to be out there, for myself as a reader, or just because it's because
reflection of
it's
the
correct,
world.
it's the right thing to do, but also like those voices are amazing. They're, you know, they're adding there every time I read Own Voices books, I'm so thankful and grateful that there's space for all of us. So in that way, I'm like, yeah, I get it. If I am writing something out of my lane, then maybe I'm taking up somebody else's spot on the shelf. But on the other hand, I think that all of us as authors and creatives, like that is what we do. If I'm just staying in my lane, it's going to be very boring for all of us.
Because
Like,
then all the characters are the same person.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So
so
read a book full of a bunch of young white girls, like, I
Yeah.
mean, there's no diversity in the book, that's as big of a problem, right?
Right.
Yeah. yeah, exactly. So I just take it to mean that if we're including other people's stories, to make sure that we're doing it really, really well and with integrity and with all of our heart, and not just because we think whatever that we're supposed to, or
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think it comes from a place of, like what you said, like the authenticity. Like, why are you putting this character into your book? Like, are you putting it in there because you want a diverse cast, or are you putting it in there because that's how you imagine that person?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and I think, I mean, not that wanting a diverse cast is wrong in and
No,
of
it's
itself,
not.
because again, the reason I love diversity in my books is because I love it in the world, and I want my books to reflect what our
Yeah.
world looks like a little
Yeah.
bit, and
Be realistic.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
so I don't know. Does that answer the question?
That's
I feel
a
like I
hard
went
question.
maybe went off on a
Sorry,
tangent.
it's a
No.
hard question, I just like,
It is a hard question.
it's something I've been trying to figure out consistently. It's why I joined this group. It's like there's so many opinions about it, and I'm like,
There
how
are.
how do you represent the world as it is without doing some of that? And yet how do you like not step over the line, you know, and
Yeah.
take away somebody else's voice or verge into inauthentic
Yeah.
something, you know, like it is tough.
I did hear one piece of great advice in terms of having a diverse cast of characters in your book, and not having it be flat or like a token, you know, like token
Oh,
diversity.
token
And I think it was Brandon Sanderson that said this, but I'm not
Probably.
positive. But he basically said, and he, of course, he writes science fiction, like science fiction fantasy. He writes,
Fantasy,
like,
yeah.
but he was
Crazy
basically saying, like, if
fantasy.
you build a world with like an alien race, and you have one person representing that alien race, then like all we know about that alien race is they
Is that one person?
is what
Yeah.
that one person likes and doesn't, whatever. So
Mhm.
he's saying like, if he makes up a people, then he will have several different
Oh. Seven different
representatives from
the
that,
same.
Yeah.
whatever, yeah, that people.
Interesting.
So that we can see that within that, one person likes noodles and one person is a vegetarian and one
Yeah.
person, whatever, like only eats meat. And then we can see that like, oh, okay, there's like, these are real people and they're also elves or whatever. But
Yeah.
but I think,
Person B.
yeah, but I think that's true for also people groups that are in real life, because I write rom-coms, so I'm representing people in real life, but like in Glimpsed, one of the main, so she's a fairy godmother, so one of the main Cinderella characters was
Who's
Indian.
helping.
Yeah, Indian heritage. But then there was also another Indian character in the book who she had very different interactions with, and was like, they did not have a lot in common with the other Indian characters. So it created a little bit more like,
There's two types of people and
Yeah.
yeah, a little bit more depth and a little bit more realism to like, yeah, there can be.
Yeah, I heard that too. I heard that advice too. That like if you want to avoid tokenism,
Mhm.
have more than one character of that background
right.
who is different.
Yeah.
You know, and I do try for that. Like myself, it's It's hard sometimes.
Yeah, of course it's hard. Writing is hard.
Yeah.
Writing is super hard.
Yeah, but it's worth it.
It is totally worth it. Brings us joy. Fantastic. Okay. What advice would you give other authors who feel discouraged or intimidated by the publishing industry, or for
Yeah.
authors who are just starting their career in writing?
Okay, get pens ready.
No
I
pressure.
I already said this, but really, there's not gonna be a time when you're over the hump and now everything's great and now you have your writing career. And I mean, maybe there is, maybe you're J.K. Rowling, but for me, that has not been my lived experience. My lived experience is that there isn't really like try as best you can to find joy now. If you're in the query trenches, if you're just writing a book that's not under contract and you wish it was, like, just know that like there's joy in all of these pieces, these seasons. And you really got to embrace it because if you can only have joy if this thing happens that you have no control over, you're gonna really struggle to be content in your life. And there's so much as authors that we don't have
We
control.
don't
over.
have control.
Even if you get an agent, maybe the book doesn't sell. If the book
Yeah.
doesn't sell, if the book sells and you get a contract, maybe it doesn't do very well.
It's true.
If it does well, maybe you get bad press or bad reviews.
Right.
Like there's
There's
just
always something out of your control.
yeah,
Yeah.
we really have to focus on what we can control, and that's our creative process, our own lives, and fulfillment outside of what we're doing on the page.
Mhm.
And then just in terms of intimidated by the publishing industry, it's intimidating. Like that's okay. You have permission to feel like it's hard because it's so hard. That is legit. I think that you have to love writing. You have to actually just love writing and know that you will do it and continue to do it even if you never make a dime.
Mhm.
And then if you are able to break into the publishing industry, that's just the toppings on top of your sundae because you're already doing something you love and now someone is also
Paying
paying you a
you.
little hot fudge.
You.
The other thing I would say is try to like your day job. If you don't like your day job, I would recommend finding a day job that you do like because even the second best case scenario is you're J.K. Rowling.
And you can quit your job.
Right. And then
Scenario you heard 20 years ago.
yeah, and your first book goes crazy and you're like instantly a millionaire. But second best case scenario is that you get an agent, you get published, and then that just so you guys know, that commission, that advance you're gonna get will not replace any salary that you're making at any job. Like if you're an Uber driver or a waitress, you're not gonna make more on the commission. 99% of the
99%.
it's probably from the time your first book gets picked up until you could replace a full-time salary, probably a decade, if everything goes well and you're consistently publishing every year.
Yes. Yes.
So
And if your
really,
stuff doesn't go out of print, right? Like, and it's still making
Right.
royalties.
right,
Right.
Yeah.
yes. I mean, most books never earn out. Most
Most
books
don't earn out.
don't, for the vast majority of us, the reality is that it's going to be a minimum of 10 years
Mhm.
in the industry before you would possibly be making a minimum wage or a living wage, I mean.
Mhm.
So don't be like, well, I'll just do this terrible job that I hate that's sucking the life out of me now because I'm going to publish this book and then I can quit. No, go find a job that you actually can be happy doing for at least the next 10 years.
Good advice. Good realistic advice.
Thanks. Sorry to be so realistic. Gross.
I think that's good though, because it is the reality. Like the reality is that publishing doesn't pay the way that we think that it's gonna pay.
Yeah.
Or that it maybe should pay.
Yeah, that too.
But it's art.
But it's
And,
art,
you
yeah.
know, I don't know any artists that in their own lifetime, like, of course, there are some. I
There are
don't
some.
personally know them. Like
No,
the
I don't
artists that I
know
know
them.
that are doing art as their job are really having to hustle and
Yeah.
do other things too. And
Mhm.
that's
That's
just,
true.
yeah, and that's okay because we love our art and that's what we're doing it for. And the money is just an extra,
The
like,
bonus.
yay, someone thought it was good too.
Somebody else wants it. Okay, so what is your current project or
Mhm.
what is next for you?
So the last two books, Not If You Break Up With Me First and What If You Fall For Me First, are in the same world. And so now I'm writing a third book in that world.
That has to do with the first book in that world.
Yes, it is a sequel. The vast majority of adult readers of the first book were like, that ending, you just got me. It was so good. I loved it. And then the vast majority of tweens and teens were like, how could you do this to me?
This is not the way it's supposed to end.
You call that an ending? There better be a sequel. So for that,
Wow, the rage.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
big feelings
Big
feelings
feelings.
in this group.
All
So
these twins.
yes, so I for my readers, I decided I should write a sequel. So we're working on that. It's due really soon.
It's going great. It's going great. Well, I think that's all we have. Do you have any other questions?
Okay, this is a question, and either of you can answer or both. Do you think it's feasible to try and self-publish middle grade? I've had several people encouraging me to try that, but like I have heard that that's really tricky to get books into schools, libraries, bookstores if you're not trad published. And I was just wondering what your thoughts are on that based on your own experiences of trad publishing.
Want to go first?
That's a great question. Thanks for asking that. I think you're correct. I think that it is tricky to, libraries and schools have very limited resources, and for the most part, they're gonna spend those resources, for the vast majority of the time, they're gonna spend those resources on traditionally published books, because that's what they're seeing in the school library journal, in Kirkus Review,
The
and,
catalog that they get.
yeah. And because those books have been vetted and they,
Yeah.
you know, indie books are very hit or miss. Some are great and some are not, because there's
Yeah.
no filter.
Mhm.
Um,
I will say that's also true of trad books, but.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah, and that's why review organizations still continue to exist.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I mean, obviously we know some very successful YA indie writers.
Yeah, why
We
is still
do.
easier, isn't it?
YA is much easier.
than
I think
indie.
because a lot of adults read YA,
Mhm.
and so you can put YA on an ebook
Yeah.
and it'll get sold.
Yeah,
and-
on a Kindle.
Yeah,
something.
and people will read those. I mean, I
Mhm.
think Rebecca Thorne, I don't think she's YA. Never mind, I take it back. But there are some authors, even in SCBWI, who are YA and they self-pubbed,
Okay.
and it's just a little bit different audience
Mhm.
versus middle grade, which is teachers and librarians selecting
Yeah.
things for the
For
kids.
Okay.
Because
that makes
the
sense.
kids don't see it, and if they don't see it,
Yeah.
then they're not gonna pick it,
Yeah, okay.
unfortunately.
Sue, how old are your protagonists in your book?
13 and 14.
Okay, and that's still considered middle grade?
Upper
So
middle
it's considered upper middle grade. I should clarify this, and because it's a little tricky. I think when you hear that I'm writing middle grade rom-com, I know middle grade can go down as low as like 7 or 8 years old,
Mhm.
and that's really not who these books are for.
Yeah.
But there has been, just in the past couple of years, this kind of renaissance of upper middle grade and lower YA, because what had happened was we had all these middle grade books that were geared toward 8-year-olds.
Uh-huh.
And then we had all these YA books that had become increasing more and more
Like
maturity
16,
level.
17,
Yeah.
18.
And your protagonist had to be 18. Like if
Yeah.
you pick up a YA book, it is very rare that your protagonist is not 18.
Yeah.
So you're allowed to be 11 or 12 as a protagonist,
And
or
then
you're allowed to be
18.
18.
Yeah.
But
there's, like,
no,
nothing
for
in the middle.
years, there was
Yeah.
no protagonists that were in the middle of that. So it was like, so 13-year-olds and 14-year-olds, they just don't have any stories worth telling. 15-year-olds aren't allowed to exist. Like,
16-year-olds have nothing to say.
Right.
Like, yeah.
so I feel like there was just a big gap there, which now we're calling upper middle grade and lower YA. We're like, that's coming in to fill that gap. And so while it's true that kids like to read up, it's also true that they like to read about
Their
where
age,
they
where
are at, you know, so
Completely agree. I never liked to read up. I wanted to read about somebody exactly my age, and that was always what I gravitated towards far
Yeah.
more, because someone 2 years older might be wildly different. Like if I'm in junior high, I don't want to read about
A high
high
schooler.
schoolers. Like I want to read about kids my own age. you know?
yeah,
So like they say that, but I feel like that is largely something adults say.
decided for them,
Decided for them.
yeah.
Talk to actual kids, or I ask what they're reading, and they're almost invariably reading about kids closer to their own age, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting thing. I've always heard that, and I'm like, it's not what I'm seeing. When I taught, I didn't see that. Like they were never reading up, or at least not that much. Within a year or so,
Yeah.
and they might read 2 years, but like,
I read
Still
up
there.
when I was a kid because
Did
there
you?
wasn't a lot of stuff in the middle school,
Mhm.
junior high.
yeah,
Age
Yeah, I read up, but
And
I
I
don't
read
think
up.
if things had been available to me that had been
Yeah.
my age and interesting to me, then I would have
Oh,
picked
yeah.
them up for sure. But yeah, so I realize that saying middle grade causes some people to like every muscle in their body to cringe, to be like, are you seriously marketing rom-coms to 8-year-olds? I'm not intentionally doing that. But I think, you know, 10, 11, 12, 13-year-olds are very excited to read
Yeah.
rom-coms.
Oh, yeah.
They're very interested in it.
Yes.
and it's such a different age group than your 7, 8, 9-year-olds. So
That's
it really
true.
is.
Mhm.
I even think 14, 15, 16 is a little different than 10 through 13. Like I
That's
think
true.
they start becoming much more interested in actually experimenting with like romance and
Right.
Mhm.
things like that.
That's
But
true.
But
But in
it's changed so much.
yeah, but in terms of like
Yeah.
the audience, I still feel
Mhm.
like the 9th, 10th graders, they're still getting their stuff from teachers
Yeah,
and librarians.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think. I know maybe 2 teenagers who read webtoons,
Oh,
that are that were like 9th, 10th grade, but some of that stuff is mature too, so
Yeah.
I don't know.
I know for me, I was definitely all about the library, the school
Yeah, I
library, the
was
public
very-
library.
yes.
Like, who's got $20 for a book?
Oh, no,
Like-
there's no way. We went to the library all the time. No money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Glinka. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I am going to stop the recording. Goodbye. Oh, before we go, our next meeting is July 27th. It'll be here from 2 to 4:30-ish. We're gonna watch American Fiction
Oh.
and have popcorn and like bottled stuff. And so if you want to come, please join us. I think there's plenty of chairs and we'll try to project it on the
It's
TV.
when? July?
July 27th, which is a Sunday, from like 2 to whenever the movie ends. I know Sundays are hard, but that is our plan. And it is a rated R movie, just FYI. So be wary of the F-bombs. All right.
It's because we write for kids, doesn't mean we are kids.